So I was walking around in my life since I was like 10 or 11 years old, suffering with PTSD, which were actually stemming from sexual abuse when I was young.
And then like this year, you shared openly that you made £250,000 in the first quarter of the year. Like, yeah. What the actual fuck? So today's guest is Amy Rushworth. Amy is a dear friend of mine. She is part of my soul sister tribe, equal partners in crime in our curiosity for weird shit, and on the same page when it comes to living outside the norm and breaking down the box that society has laid out for us. Welcome, Amy.
So happy to be here. Sounds exactly like my cup of tea, babe.
Totally. I'm going to start by reading your official bio from Instagram. And I love it because every time I go to check your profile, for whatever reason, your titles are changed. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I thought I would just read what it is today. So it says priestess and business coach to rebels, living from an overflow of healing. And I love how vulnerable you are online and as a friend and as someone that I, put lots of trust in. Do you want to share a little bit about, some of the dark spots, some of the shadow work that you have had to go through, continually to work through, that maybe people listening at home can relate to? I know when I'm vulnerable online, people really kind of connect and almost like they feel like they're not alone, because they know that people may look at you now and see this orgasmic dancing woman priestess running around Spain in this villa, but not knowing the darkness you've had to go through. So if that feels okay for you, maybe you can share a little bit about that.
So for me, my rock bottom was the result of this undiagnosed PTSD. So I was walking around in my life since I was like 10 or 11 years old, suffering with PTSD and completely disassociated from my body. Now, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, there wasn't like this obvious big T trauma. I was going through a really stressful time. I'd broken up with my boyfriend at the time. He'd got together with one of my really good friends who I was living with. So it was like super messy. And I was trying to go to work in the fashion industry and be perfect and put on a smile. But I was like having panic attacks in my car and like in the toilet. So it was pretty hectic. And what I didn't realize at the time, though, was that situation was almost just like a catalyst for these, intense waves of PTSD, which were actually stemming from sexual abuse when I was young. And so I actually didn't recall that or have those flashbacks or actually properly come back into my body until another 2 years after that diagnosis. And genuinely, the reason that I think that I remembered a while after was because I was completely sober for the first time in my life. I hadn't been drinking any alcohol. I'd not been smoking. I'd not been taking any drugs. And I was in a really beautiful new relationship that was really emotionally secure and really safe. And genuinely, I think it was like my inner child was like, oh, wow, you're finally safe to be loved by someone. And so we're going to release these memories to you now. And so they released in these series of like traumatic flashbacks. For anyone who's had flashbacks, you'll know it's pretty terrifying. You just completely leave your body and you're in a movie and you see what's happening. So I experienced myself again being abused while I was in the middle of my room in London at 25 years old. And I went on this journey to healing that, because what actually happened was that I couldn't speak about it. I wanted to, and I kept going to try and tell Tristan, who I'm now married to, but he was my boyfriend at the time. And every time I would try and tell him, like nothing would come out of my throat. Like I would open my mouth and be like, and I would just cry.
And when you talk about the memory was stored in your body, and a lot of people carry memories that are stored in our body, but they don't have the tools, the courage, or the strategies, the techniques to really uncover and to get it out. What did that unpacking look like for you? What type of help and support and healers and therapists and that kind of thing, what did that look like when you started to acknowledge that had come back to you, and to go through that journey of like accepting and having to relive that trauma, which can re-traumatize you? What was the support system look like for you?
Back in the original instance of me seeking support, like if I had have seen someone like me, it probably would have been too much. I would have been like, what the actual fuck? You know what I mean? Like I was not living in this paradigm. So for me, really the first thing that was so edgy for me, like it was such a leap for me, was to just do traditional counseling, to just have a traditional counselor who I was working with and going to her house and sitting on her couch. And I remember feeling so awkward and not wanting to cry. And I was terrified of just opening my mouth, and then that gave me, I guess, an environment of safety that I didn't know existed. I'd never had an environment like that or a space held for me like that. And then I started looking down the sort of like nutrition route, because I was experiencing a lot of issues in my body as well. So like around the time of this rock bottom, I actually got pneumonia. I was like walking around with pneumonia for 3 months without knowing, and just working and smoking and partying through it. And I was getting UTIs every week, and I just thought it was all genetic. And so I started looking at how to take care of my body, just as the most simple way of like, this is how I can love myself and heal. And then I started going down the route of these more somatic therapies as I was being introduced to this world more and more, doing things even like yoga. And then I really sort of went down this pathway of like sexual healing and sensuality. And like I'm trained in that now, because obviously my root trauma was a lot to do with like my body, my throat, being violated. My first experiences of sex were being abused. So looking at different kinds of like tantric modalities, breath work, etc. But I would say like the thing that I love the most and that really transformed my life is rebirthing breathwork, but in a very subtle way. Like I didn't realize that it was having the impact that it was until maybe like a year later, where I was like, holy shit, I have completely radically evolved as a person and healed so many little things that were there that are no longer here. And so that's why I facilitate that, because that modality is like, that's profound. And all the somatic stuff, like that's when I really started seeing like these very deep foundational changes in how I was operating in my life. But it was a journey. Like, had you given me those things right in the instance of me starting to heal, maybe that wouldn't have penetrated so deeply. Maybe I would have resisted that or denied that that was possible. So I think that it's like we go on these unraveling journeys and we land where we need to be, as long as we keep recommitting to the healing.
I love how more recently, maybe this year, you talk about quantum shifts and quantum leaps. And I'd love for you to share with the audience a little bit more about what that means and how that has helped you kind of really level up in so many different ways in your life, your business, getting closer to, living your dream life, or you are living your dream life.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of like this strange dichotomy, but also marriage between the subtle shifts and these big quantum shifts, right? So by nature, like my true nature, I'm quite bold. I'm a Leo. I got a Taurus moon. So there's a bull inside of me and a lion on the outside, wanting big, powerful changes and courageous changes. But for a long time in my life, when I was really like oppressing myself and like repressing my true nature, I was fucking around. You know what I mean? I was just like living for the weekend, thinking that things couldn't change, really not going all in. with what I wanted at all, and being a bit of a victim of my life, to be honest, thinking like, oh, there's no other way. This is just how things are, and not really like taking responsibility for anything. So going all in, creating quantum shifts comes from having your energy fully behind and your belief fully behind what you want and what you want to create. And this is true for business or any kind of manifestation. Like the ones who are going to make it and do really big things are the ones that back themselves. And that doesn't mean that you don't have days where you feel like you can't do it or you have doubts. Like I have that at least once a week for sure. But it's how you meet those moments. It's like, how are you going to meet that? Are you going to be like, yeah, it's true, I'm a piece of shit, I can't do it? Or are you going to be like, oh, look at that thought. That thought's back again. Oh, that was here last week too. Okay, cool. What am I going to do with that? And so this is why like your healing and all the subtle healing and the subtle work that you do influences your ability to make big quantum shifts, like starting a business and really going for it, or moving overseas really suddenly, leaving a really fine relationship because you want a true soulmate. Like all of that comes from the healing that you do prior and knowing yourself. So they go together, the little shifts and the big shifts, but the quantum shifts are really like, they're those moments in your journey where you're like, okay, I'm going all in. I'm burning my boats on the shore. There's no going back. And there's a lot of those moments in my life now.
So let's just fast forward. So that was 2018, where you literally had to pull the pin on your safety blanket and put everything, all your energy, all your worth into this, I think, Make Your Magic Academy, wasn't it called? Is it called?
Yes.
That was your first group program.
Cute,
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. And then like this year, you shared openly that you made £250,000 in the first quarter of the year. Like, what the actual fuck? Amazing. Let's just have a little think about this. Like, I suppose it might start or make more sense when you talk about what you manifested to move to an amazing bougie as fuck villa in Spain in the middle of COVID, against all of the logical things to do and the safe things to do. Was you literally went against all of those, let's stay in the box, let's stay safe, let's keep to, the regulations. What did that look like? And I feel like that was like the first like quantum leap for 2021. Like it set you up for this amazing quantum leap.
We were in London for a few years and I was itching to leave for ages, as I know you were too. And because my husband was like doing his MBA and he was working at a bank, it just wasn't like feasible for us to both leave. So I was like, okay, I'll take this one for the team, but we have a plan to like leave, right? And so he was starting his business, and the universe just like supported us so amazingly. Like around the time that he was starting his business, his work offered voluntary redundancy and to like pay him quite a lot of money to like leave, which he wanted to do anyway. So we were like, fantastic. This was around like October. They signed the papers like a day before Mercury retrograde. I was like, yes, like it's meant to be. And then we locked down in London, and we realized that because there was a Brexit cutoff because the UK is leaving the EU, and it has. And so we were like, oh, if we actually want to move to Europe, as is our plan, through the English residency, we have to go and like we have to get somewhere now. But it was a lockdown, right? And the lockdown was lifting on, I think it was like December 1st or December 4th or something like that. And the UK government had said, we definitely won't lock down again. You'll be able to, see each other on Christmas and stuff. I fucking knew in my body. I was like, no way. They will open up for like 1 or 2 weeks, and I know that they're going to lock down again. Don't tell me how I knew. Body-based wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. That's exactly what ended up happening. So I knew we have to get out in this period of time, which was only a few weeks away, right? Because we realized this in November. So we found a house that we loved, manifested it. I had never been to Mallorca. I was like, I want that house. I'm going to live there. I'm manifesting it. It's already done. And we made it happen and we came here. And then the UK locked down again, and basically no one could get out after that. Like anyone who wanted to get to Europe couldn't. So we were really lucky. I'd been warned that this would happen also. Like I'd been warned, like you're going to move somewhere in December. Things are going to blast off you in January by an astrologist that I met because my Saturn return started in January. And so we got here. It was amazing. I was in nature. I was like finally in my essence. I felt so good being out of London, like energetically, spiritually, emotionally, everything just shifted for me. And then in January, out of nowhere, I didn't do anything differently than usual. I had my first 6-figure month. I made 130,000 and something pounds in January. I was just chilling outside in the sun and like I launched 2 things that I loved. And then in February, I got sick. I had to have surgery. And then by the end of March, the first quarter, I had made that money through my business.
Amazing. Thank you so much, beautiful. It has been an absolute pleasure to have this face-to-face time. See you again soon.